Welcome to the Kori J Podcast. I have a new episode here for you all, and in this episode, I'll be starting on a new series called the Contender Series. And in this series, what I'll be doing is breaking down a short list of teams, maybe 7 to 10 teams that I'll be breaking down, giving a team preview of all of the contenders for this upcoming NBA season. And these are teams that have a good chance of competing for the championship next year, or at least a puncher's chance of challenging other teams for that title this upcoming season. And in these previews, I'll be analyzing the additions that these teams made this offseason, some of the players that they lost, potential lineups, and sort of giving them an overall grade on their performance this offseason and comparing them with other contenders. So let's get into this breakdown. But before I start, I have here a graphic of a team pyramid. And in this pyramid, we have sort of a hierarchy of ranking the teams coming into this upcoming season. And in this ranking system, they have the teams listed in tiers. So if you're listening through audio, I'm going to sort of give you a breakdown of what this graphic is showing. We have here the high odds tier, and these are the teams that can be considered the favorites coming into the upcoming season. So in the high odds tier, we have the Lakers and the Clippers only. And then they have a second tier, which is a little bit below that, in the contenders. And these are the teams that are more than likely will challenge these teams for the championship. And that is the Warriors, the Bucks, the Sixers, the Celtics, and the Rockets. And then so on and so forth. They have other tiers as well, such as playoff locks. They have a playoff contenders tier. And they have a tanking and low-seeded tier as well, which are the teams that more than likely will not be competing and just sort of looking to tank for a high lottery pick in the next draft this upcoming year. So I thought this graphic was very interesting. I didn't create it myself, but I don't agree with it 100% as well. If it was up to me, I would probably move a couple of the teams in the playoff locks tier and put them up in the contenders tier, but that's what I'm here for, is to break it all down for you all. So let's get started with this contender series and previewing these contenders. So the first team that I'll be previewing is the Los Angeles Lakers. Now let's look at some of the offseason additions that they made. We all know that the biggest thing that they did was acquiring Anthony Davis from the New Orleans Pelicans via trade. And they also end up firing their whole coaching staff with the loss of Luke Walton as well. So they brought in the coaches of Frank Vogel, Lionel Holland, Jason Kidd, Phil Handy, Quentin Crawford, and Mike Penberthy. So those were the coaching changes that the Lakers made. But let's get into the players, which is what everyone cares about. We all know they added Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins, which I thought was a big pickup post the Kawhi Leonard saga, Danny Green, Avery Bradley, Quinn Cook, Jared Dudley, Troy Daniels, Talon Horton-Tucker, Zach Norvell, who was a two-way guard that they signed this offseason. He played at Gonzaga as a playmaking guard. Kostas Antetokounmpo, he was a two-way player for the Dallas Mavericks last year, and the Lakers claimed him off of waivers this year as a sort of development prospect as well. So those two players are on two-way contracts. So let's just look at these additions for a second. And I gotta say, I think the Lakers did an okay job at adding some pieces to this team. We all know they want to contend for a championship. Last year didn't quite go the way that they thought it would go with the young talent and LeBron James. They faced a lot of injuries, and the fit was never really quite there with the young talent that they lost in Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and so on and so forth. But now they have a more veteran roster with these additions. Anthony Davis is only 26 years old, so that gives LeBron James a co-star to sort of right the ship with the Lakers. Adding DeMarcus Cousins on a very cheap deal, by the way. I thought that was a great move. Danny Green is a sharpshooter. He had his best shooting year last year, shooting around 45% from the catch and shoot on threes. And I think he's a great fit. He played with LeBron James previously in Cleveland. And then that's the ideal 3-and-D guy that you sort of want in the modern day NBA. Avery Bradley is the guy that a lot of people sort of complain about because they say his defense has slipped since he was a Boston Celtics. He has been in a lot of different destinations with the Detroit Pistons, recently with the Clippers, before he was traded to the Memphis Grizzlies. So I think he still has that potential to be an elite defender in this league. He's still a tenacious defender to me, at least on the ball. He gets up under guys, and he's one of the best on the ball defenders to me still, despite the defensive metrics saying he sort of took a slip. But I thought Avery Bradley was a decent pickup as well on the room section that they used on him. They also added Quinn Cook, which was a guard from the Golden State Warriors, who's a sharpshooter. He's not a great defender, but he's a solid player that got some minutes in the finals last year with the Golden State Warriors. They added Jerry Dudley, who's sort of a veteran mentorship guy that did a lot of things with the Brooklyn Nets last year and helping those guys develop. And they ended up making the playoffs last year for the first time in a while. So Jerry Dudley is sort of the good veteran guy that you want in your locker room. And I thought the Lakers did a good job in adding a guy like that to sort of help LeBron James and other veterans lead this team to where they want to be. Troy Daniels, we know, is a sharpshooter. He's a spot-up shooter for the most part, but he can knock it down. Talon Horton-Tucker was a guy that was taken in the second round, but I thought he was a first-round talent that played at Iowa State. He can do a lot with the ball. He's very young. I think he's the youngest prospect in this draft, but I really like Talon Horton's game, so I liked that pick as well. Zach Norvell was okay, but he's on a two-way contract, so he probably won't see much time this year on the official roster. And of course, we know Kostas Antetokounmpo, that is Giannis's younger brother. I think he's around 21 years old, so he's going to be a project and likely not see the court much this year. As far as the coaches, Frank Vogel, you can argue on whether he's an upgrade over Luke Walton or not. Me personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of Luke Walton, but I think you can definitely say the assistants with this new staff is an upgrade. And adding Lionel Hollins, Jason Kidd, Phil Handy, Quentin Crawford, and Mike Pittsburgh. The one I'm most excited about is Phil Handy. He's really a respected guy around this league. He's praised as a development coach. He was recently with the champions and the Toronto Raptors. He left that role from the Raptors to take on an assistant coach role with the Los Angeles Lakers. So he's really known as a guru for developing players, and he's really respected around the league. So these are the additions that the Lakers made this offseason. Now let's look at the subtractions and who they lost. So we have, on the player side, we only lost Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Lance Stevenson, Reggie Bullock, Tyson Chandler, Mo Wagner, Isaac Bonga, Jamario Jones, Mike Muscala, and Jonathan Williams, who was on a two-way contract. And then as far as the coaching side, they lost Luke Walton, Brian Shaw, Magic Johnson, hallelujah, Jesse Merrill, and Mark Madsen. So let's analyze some of these subtractions as well. Now, I was a big Lonzo Ball fan. I still believe that he has potential to be an elite point guard in this league, but he hasn't got there yet. So I don't think it'll be as big of a loss losing Lonzo Ball, Ingram, and Josh Hart, knowing that you get Anthony Davis, because those guys were more of a potential thing. I think they all have potential to still be great. Brandon Ingram showed a lot last year in stretches where he got close to averaging around 20 points per game and had a couple of really good solid games in the midway point of the season. So I really like Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and Josh Hart, but like I said, they're more of a potential thing, and right now the Lakers are trying to win championships, so they needed a guy like Anthony Davis who's more of a surefire thing. Look at the other guys. Lance Stevenson, that's not a big loss at all. Reggie Bullock was a good shooter last year, but he wasn't necessarily a great shooter on the Lakers. He had a better shooting year with the Detroit Pistons before they acquired him. Tyson Chandler, he's kind of, at the end of his career, so he wasn't as big of a loss as well. Mo Wagner was a guy that they took in the first round last year, but he had to be involved in a trade to create cap space for the Lakers. Isaac Bonga was sort of a project last year. Jamario Jones, a guy they brought in last season, who I actually really liked. I would love if the Lakers kept him, so I think he's a really gritty player and one of those hard-nosed players that you want. But at the end of the day, he's probably not going to play much anyway, and he's more of a project as well. Mike Muscala, I don't even know why he's in the NBA right now, but that's not that much of a loss either. And then Jonathan Williams, he was on a two-way contract. So, and by the way, if you don't know what a two-way contract is, that's guys that can go from the G League into the NBA throughout the season. They can play games in the G League and the NBA if the team calls them up That's why they call it two-way, because you can play in G League and in the NBA. So that's what a two-way contract is if you're not familiar with it. But these are the subtractions. I've already gotten into Luke Walton. I think he was a little bit overrated, being a coach in Golden State. So I think his reputation is a little bit hyped from that time in Golden State, and now he's a new coach of the Sacramento Kings. So good luck to them in their season. But I wasn't as big of a fan of Luke Walton. Brian Shaw, he was okay. Magic Johnson, I think we all knew he had to go from the Lakers, as he was more focused on his business avenues than sort of helping the Lakers steer the ship. So these are the subtractions for the Los Angeles Lakers this summer. Now, let's get into the returning players who are returning from the same team last year. So we have, of course, LeBron James is still with the team. Kyle Kuzma managed to stay around with the team. He didn't get traded. You know, a lot of people were saying he got really close to Genie, so he could stick around. But Kuzma, he knew what to do. He's a charismatic guy, and he managed to stick around. So Rajon Rondo was back. JaVale McGee is back. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope came back. And, of course, the biggest addition, I thought, was Alex Caruso. Just kidding. But, yeah, this is the returning players. LeBron, of course. Kuzma. I think it was big keeping Kuzma because he's a good fit alongside LeBron James. And LeBron assisted Kuzma the most out of all the young guys last year. So that was a big addition, keeping Kuzma out of that trade. I'm not as high on Rajon Rondo now. I don't think he's a positive player in this league anymore. He is often more of a negative in the plus-minus category when he's on the court. He can't shoot the ball very well. He's gotten better than what he was before, but him sharing the floor with LeBron, teams dare Rondo to shoot the ball, so it's not an ideal fit pairing Rondo and LeBron on the court together. Now, maybe Rondo will be primarily with the second unit and being a leader off the bench, but I think the main reason they brought Rondo back was because the guys do respect him as one of the leaders on this team. He does help a lot of the young players out in watching film and developing their game. So Rondo will probably be more of a veteran leader on this team and assist with his playmaking ability down the line with his veteran leadership. But I wasn't excited with this return for the Lakers. I don't think it was a good return player, but they got him, so it is what it is. JaVale McGee, I thought that was a decent pickup or return from last year. He did have a decent season last year. He started off kind of hot as a starting center for the Lakers, and he had some couple good stretches here and there. He got sick, and then he kind of fell off, and he kind of resurged again towards the end of the season. But I don't have a problem with JaVale returning. I know he has a history of being a Shaq and the Fool MVP, but JaVale is one of the elite rim protectors in his league, and he's a elite lob city finisher. So I think it's okay bringing back JaVale McGee. Now, I didn't like the return of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I just think he's sort of a really streaky player. He is young. I didn't like the money that I think he got around $8 million per year for 2 years, but I think it's okay considering what some of the other guys got on the market. He is still pretty young. I think he's going to be 26 years old. He still can defend when he wants to, but it's like with him, it's an effort thing. It's an effort thing with him. He doesn't always give his best, and he can be really inconsistent. So I don't think it's a great return getting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope back, but they did end up returning with KCP there. Alex Caruso is a fan favorite with the Lakers and Lakers fans, so I think that was a good return getting Caruso back. He might be their best point guard option this year. Honestly, he's a better defender than Rondo and Quentin Cook. He still has to develop a little bit on the offensive end. He showed a little bit in stretches last year of ability to play make. And he had a little bit of chemistry with LeBron James last year. He's an underrated athlete. He can get up on you and dunk it if you let him. You know, if you look at him, he looks like a plumber, but Caruso can actually play a little bit. So I like his game, and I'm glad they brought him back. Let's look at the next slide here. This is the contract value of all the new contracts that they signed this offseason. So let's look at some of these players based on their contract value and weigh it and grade it based on the Lakers signing. So Anthony Davis, of course, is A+. You take that deal anytime you're able to get a franchise guy like Anthony Davis. Danny Green, I think they slightly overpaid for Danny Green at 15 mil per year, but looking at some of the contracts the other guys got, like Wayne Ellington, Reggie Bullock, Steph Curry, so on and so forth, Danny Green is probably at the top as far as 3-and-D players in his league. And I probably would have gave him around 12 to 13 million per year, but 15 million per year, it's only two more extra $1 million, especially considering the fact that they didn't get Kawhi Leonard, so you had to sort of overpay for a few guys here and there to sort of build the roster. And I think Danny Green was the top target after they failed to get Kawhi Leonard this summer. So it's a slight overpay, but I don't think it's as big as overpay as some people are making it seem now. DeMarcus Cousins on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. That's a stain. I know that Cousins wasn't necessarily great in the finals for the Warriors last year, as he was sort of fighting through injuries again. But if you look at the regular season, I think he played about 30-something games. He didn't get a full season to rehab and sort of get his legs under him, but he still averaged around 16 points, and he contributed in ways that kind of surprised me a little bit for a guy coming off of a torn Achilles injury. So I think him having a summer off to really get his body right and maybe get some conditioning in. We've already seen some pictures surface of him appearing to lose weight and looking a little thinner. So hopefully we get a resurgence from DeMarcus Cousins. I think he was probably the best center in the league before he tore his Achilles. So he still has some ways to go to get back to that form, though. So I think it's a good signing at that price and on a 1-year deal. It's a low-risk, high-reward signing, so I think that's an A signing, in my opinion. Avery Bradley, I'll give it a C+. Like you said, he's not the player that he once was, but he has suffered a lot of injuries in recent years with his groin and so on and so forth. But if he can stay healthy and find new motivation on a championship team again, and a team where he's playing meaningful basketball, they may be able to bring the best out of Avery Bradley and being that on-ball defender and pressuring point guards and shooting guards on the perimeter. So Avery Bradley signing, I gave it a C+. JaVale McGee, again, I don't have a problem bringing back JaVale McGee on a 2-year, $8 million deal. I think that's fair value for what he brings in the NBA as shot blocking and a lob city finisher as well. So JaVale McGee, I give that a B- signing. Alex Caruso, I really like his game. I think he's a good guy to bring back as well. And like I said, he might be the best point guard that they have on this roster. So B+ for Alex Caruso as well. Talen Horton-Tucker, I give this deal an A- because like I said, I thought Talen Horton-Tucker was a first-round talent, and they got him, I believe, in the 30 or 40 in the 40s in the second round of the draft previously. So kudos to them for finding a guy like that. We haven't seen him play in Summer League yet, but I like Talen Horton-Tucker's game, so I think that's a good draft pick that they made this summer. So I give that an A-. KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, like I said, I didn't like the sign. I thought he got too much money at $8 million per year. There's a lot of jokes that we all know he's a clutch guy with Rich Paul and LeBron's agent, but the Lakers did bring him back. I don't like the signing. I would give it a D in bringing KCP back, but again, there is some upside because he's young and he can still defend when he wants to. He can shoot when he's consistent, but he isn't consistent very often. So I don't like the KCP contract, but they did bring him back on that deal. Quinn Cook, 2 years, $6 million. I thought that's good value for a guy that can really shoot the ball and is a solid player for Golden State last year. He played around 15 minutes per game. He got minutes in the NBA Finals. So Quinn Cook, I think, is a very solid guy. He was a huge Lakers fan growing up. So I thought that was a good addition for the Lakers, bringing Quinn Cook in on that 2 year, $6 million contract. Rondo, as I said before, wasn't a fan of the signing, but his veteran leadership and everything on a minimum deal, I guess it's very low risk because he's not, making as much on a minimum deal. So I'm not a fan of Rondo in 2019, but maybe if they get to the playoff, we'll see playoff Rondo, and we'll see a different version than what we see in the regular season. Jared Dudley, as I mentioned before, just another veteran leader in that locker room, a guy that can defend multiple positions. He's not the fastest guy on the perimeter, but He has a very high basketball IQ, and I think he'll help keep that locker room gelling and keep those guys together. So Jared Dudley was signed on a minimum of $2.5 million. And now, let's look at the potential lineups of the Lakers next year. The starters, there's been rumors that LeBron will probably start at point guard this upcoming season. So I've sort of based these lineups off of the information that's out there. But I put the players at the positions that I think they're going to defend. So I have Avery Bradley starting at point guard for the Lakers potentially because he's going to be likely defending point guards on other teams. So a potential starter lineup for the Lakers could look like Avery Bradley, Danny Green, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins. And then they could have a bench potentially of either Caruso, Quinn, or Rondo. At shooting guard, you could have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or Tyler Horton-Tucker. Small forward, I think Kyle Kuzma will come off the bench for this team, but I still think he will end up in the closing lineup. So just because he comes off the bench, that doesn't mean he's not a key player in this team. He still can contribute as a sixth man, but ultimately I think Kuzma will be in the closing lineup for this team. Jared Dudley is a backup power forward. He doesn't really defend threes much these days, but I think he's better suited as a power forward defending smaller bigs or slower-footed wing guys on the perimeter. So, and then at backup center, JaVale McGee, who may start some games, or maybe at the beginning of the season he starts, but I would potentially put him off the bench and bring in the energy that he brings as a rim protector off the bench. So these are the potential lineups that the Lakers could run with, and that is that. So overall, I gave the Lakers a B+ for their offseason moves. I think automatically when you get a guy like Anthony Davis, it can't be lower than a B. Pairing a potentially top 5 player with LeBron James. So I give him a B+ for that alone. And then, although they didn't get Kawhi Leonard this summer, that would have boosted them up to an A. Acquiring Kawhi Leonard with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But even though they didn't get Kawhi Leonard, I think they did a good job of building the roster around LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They could have panicked and made some bad signings, but they really recouped pretty well and getting great value for some of these guys like DeMarcus Cousins, Quinn Cook, bringing back JaVale McGee, and so on and so forth. So kudos to the Lakers in building, I think, a better roster instead of just signing guys that can make like Lance Stevenson and Beasley and things like that. I think they did a better job of getting guys that know their roles, like Avery Bradley. He's a 3-and-D guy. Danny Green, very high basketball IQ. Jared Dudley is a leader and high basketball IQ guy. So I think they went a different direction this offseason that could be contributed to the loss of Magic Johnson not weighing in on so much on the decisions. But overall, I gave the Lakers a B+. Let me know what you all think about that. This is the end of the Lakers preview, so thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And I will get to you next week on a preview of another team. I think that will be the Los Angeles Clippers, which is what I'll preview next. So make sure you tune in for the episode next week of the Contender Series. So thank you all for tuning in. This is Kori J, signing out.